Hi everyone, welcome back to this week Weekly Market Update. So just run the quick one, what's happening on last week and things to watch out for. So you can see the S&P closed lower but posted third straight weekly gain last week. Alright, but this rally, right, kind of like bring to my concern. Ultimately, it's because he has been hitting all-time high. As you can see that S&P with the index Thursday crossing 7,008 for the first time, hitting an intraday all-time high. So yes, high can be higher, right? But the thing is that we try to be a bit more less aggressive at this time being. Why? Because this coming week on Wednesday, if I'm not wrong, is actually the Fed decisions on the rate. Right, whether will they maintain or whether will they reduce or increase. All right, so ultimately based on the statistics, right, based on the inflation, based on the economy data, it seems like there's only two possibility. One is either maintain the rate, second is to hike the rate. All right, so I'm not sure. This is what I read through ultimately. So if let's say they maintain, I mean it's a good call for the market to be continued to bullish. If they out of sudden increase the rate, which we don't really want because Trump always want to cut the rate, right? So that will somehow bring the market down as well. So this coming Wednesday is very important. So just be careful if you continue to be aggressive itself lah. So as you can see, the softer data should ease the pressure on the Fed, the raise rate. Okay, so there's either maintain or to increase, but to cut, I'm not sure. Are they prepared for that? So yeah, so any surprise, just be careful if you are over concentrate into the US market or heavily into your portfolio, just be careful on that as well. Okay, so coming to this week, do take note of the earnings whisper continue from the earning whisper. So there's a couple of shares, like example Walmart, to see the retail spending. All right, so people who are still in Alibaba in the Chinese group company, then we want to pay attention to it as well. Okay, so this is a few counter that you want to pay attention to. Then, of course, I think there's low on Wednesday. This is more to the uh, housing. All right, housing itself. Just the metrics to measure it. All right, so coming to that, let's go to the market itself. So for the market itself, we can see that this is Dow Jones, all right, Dow Jones Index. Of course, I mean, in the long term, in the bigger picture, we can see that the good part is still perpetually on the upside, which is a good thing, okay? But will there be significant pullback? Something I want to pay attention is that right now, VIX is actually at the extremely low, right? VIX is actually at the extremely low. Of course, I used to measure, right, VIX, I think 20. I used to put VIX as 20K followed by, I think it's 12. Okay, so that is the benchmark. All right, so right now it's actually coming to the low part. Will there be, where we see when you touch the low a couple of times, you always spike back, right? So this is what I'm afraid of. Wednesday, is there any spiky move? Because right now it's too peaceful, right? Too peaceful. Everyone, wow, market is continuing after a few drop for from the uh, semiconductor, right? For the past few weeks to months, it has been dropping, and right now there's a relief of pulling back. So this is one of my concern. Will it pull back on the VIX itself? Okay. Next thing, let's take a look into Nasdaq. Okay, for Nasdaq. Okay, so this is how Nasdaq is performing. Things that I don't really I mean, this is for daily chart. Things which I don't really feel comfortable at the moment. I mean, of course, there's no signal that you'll break down, but currently, I don't really dislike this part, or this part because it's going up, but it's inching down, right? Then you can look into the 4 hour and 1 hour, how you want to look at it. So as long as it can continue this whole diagram, that should be fine enough. All right, but there might be some movement in between. As long as it's don't break, we are still considered safe. All right, so but do watch out if let's think things go apart, then you may want to be careful because I went to individual stocks. It seems like it's not looking so great ultimately, right? But we never know. As you can see, Amazon after the huge spike of the earning, it's time to recover back. All right, this drop doesn't mean Amazon is back. All right, it's just saying that there's a gap for them to recover. So if that's it, there's a gap for them to recover, more likely Nasdaq will come down. It will break just now the zone where you talk about, right? And it may pull out the whole technology sector. So just be careful if you are going into individual stocks. There's still some selective counter that has chance to go up. All right, so if you are feeling any counter, you think your counter is well support, then you may consider to go in. Otherwise, do take note on the index itself. Do watch out and monitor closely. Okay, so and then we go into individual stocks. One of the stocks which I like quite currently, I think is Apple. All right, for Apple. So this Apple shares, I love Apple. I think it's quite resilient in this market. Even if the market fall, if Nasdaq fall, yes, it may dip a bit, but you will not dip this kind of level, right? So with the earnings, everything is good. I think right now, if it continue to dip, I'm looking for some area around here for me to pick it up. Okay, so that is my call for Apple. And then of course there are certain counter which I actually very love it. I don't want to go through. It's just being selective. Apple is one of them. Then we go through into gold right now. Okay, raw picture for gold. So for gold, after well support at 4,000, we can see the market actually went higher. Correct? I mean, the good thing is that after it break through this one downside of descending, okay, and then it break up. Can you see that it break, and then the market pull back and then go higher. So this part, will it continue to drive even higher? RSI is almost at the oversold, overbought situations. I mean, being more sensible enough, I will definitely, for my style, I will definitely wait for a pullback. So where was the pullback? I'll just take from the top and then to the bottom, and I'll just use the Fibonacci. Maybe I'm looking at 4,002 at a 50% to see is there any pullback, or worse off 4,150. These two level. These are the two level I'm looking for a decent pullback. All right. If it go even lower like 4,001, I'm not surprised as long as after it break above here, if this ever fall below 4,000, to me, I will just cut everything in it. After a good rally breakout, if it ever to fall back 4,000, I will just cut everything in it. Otherwise, it should be hovering, then there's some pickup. So look for some pullback to go higher. That is my perspective for gold. And then when we look at oil of course is being speculated right now because we know what's happened to Trump, to Iran, So this whole part, if you are being inside, you will think that oil is very hard to play. All right, there's a lot of ding dong here and there, right? So it's not being easy. I think 75 or 80 is being the 80, 80, 80 is be a fair value. Okay, used to be a resistance, try to support, and then try to break. So this part not easy to play. Okay, it's being sensitive between the Iran and the US itself. Okay, the Iran and the US itself. So we are right now stuck in this symmetrical triangle, waiting for either side to show weight. Okay, waiting for either side to show weight. So just be cautious if you like to play on oil. There'll be more risk management on your portfolio itself. Okay, so that is my call, and then we go into individual counter. Individual counter, usually I will just go into most active, and then we see things to pay attention to as well. So things which just now I mentioned is actually Amazon, right? It's just like dropping, but the good part is that I think AMD, AMD, all right, AMD. Okay, there's some spike. This is since many months ago. So I'm not going to watch this. This is when I wrote. It's a good visual 100 accumulate. That's very 18 May, very long ago. So where will be AMD? As you can see, right now for all the semiconductor, it just basically start within this range. Okay, so yes, it seems bullish, but even if it go higher, where can it be? Maybe here only. So the mid is not like fantastic this kind of run anymore. So don't be too optimistic, buy and hold until you grow here. So for quick trade can go in, go out. All right, but people who want to buy, usually I'll buy at the bottom, right? So wait for it to retrace and buy. It's more sensible enough to say that. Okay, so if you have any counter, remember just wait for a decent pullback before you enter it. Okay, so one counter which I would like to recommend, which I also said before, let me see whether I have to bring it up again. Is actually, I'm still in. I exit. I bought lower. Right now we come back. Okay lah. Let's just talk about it again. Oster. Okay. So Oster, I mentioned, right, that is one of my event that I recommended. So after the event that go higher, pull back. Can you see how it pull back? This is the part. Yes. So I sold somewhere here. I enter again. I write again. Again, right now we are in the middle zone. I think it's quite decent, coming with a good decent volume, with a good breakout. It may recover back again. But of course, this counter is very speculative. Only buy in at a very good pullback lah. Otherwise, you may want to pass on it. Okay, so that is my view for this week current market outlook. Just be cautious if you're holding, or otherwise you can wait after this Wednesday, wait for the Fed to decide, then we review it, how does the chart form, and then we can concentrate to go into the market again. Okay, so that's all. Thank you very much. Enjoy your weekend. Bye bye.